Hello everyone, it's Silvia from Tarot. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm starting a new series as I announced probably a month ago. This is going to be called Tarot on Tour because it has been voted by you like that, and I really love this name. I really love the fact that the tarot is associated with touring and traveling, which is something that I really enjoy. And let's have a look at what it is. So basically for the next 5-6 weeks I will be traveling. I will be away from home and I will be backpacking with my husband through Southeast Asia. We're actually wondering if we're still at that age in which backpacking is still okay to do. We'll see. We have no idea. I do have some painkillers with me, just in case I need to take them, because it might get tough at a certain point, but it's an adventure. We met traveling. We met backpacking in Southeast Asia on top of everything, but that was in Vietnam. And ever since then, we've been traveling every year. We just made it so that we really told ourselves what we want out of life. And for us, the answer has always been the same, the one and only. And we want to travel because we want to meet people. We want to learn about their culture. We want to learn as much as possible and enjoy as much as possible and get to talk to locals as much as possible, because we feel like the world is this wonderful place that we don't know anything about. And we, in our lifetime, we want to just do as much as we can because we really want to know it as much as it is allowed to us. So this series is basically a on tour series, in the sense that I will be traveling, and while I'll be traveling, I've already arranged a couple of places to go to where they talk about divination, when there's possibilities to buy, for example, tarot and oracle and crystals in various places we'll be going through. And I will be interviewing people in the industry that dedicated their lives to divination, and and also the people that make it possible for the rest of us to enjoy these beautiful tarot decks that have been published recently. Because as you can imagine, artists rely on resellers for the rest of the world to enjoy their creations. And so I will definitely be visiting these places, and I will show you, I will take footage, and then I will show you, and I will talk about it in the coming videos. So don't miss. The series is called Tarot on Tour, and today is the first episode. And I thought it would have been nice to start from Sydney, because this is where I'm from. I mean, I'm from Italy, but I live now in Sydney. I've lived in Sydney since 2007. So it's quite some time. And I think that because I missed out on the evolution of my original city of Venice in Italy all these years. Actually, I left Venice when I was 21 because I went to study in London, and I missed out on the way in which the city has evolved and progressed. And I don't feel like I know the place I come from as much as I know Sydney. So I think that Sydney right now is probably the place in the world that I know the best. And even saying that, I realized that I don't know enough, and I feel like I should actually explore more of my own surroundings. So what I did in the past 3 or 4 weeks, I've actually done a lot of research about divinations and what Sydney represents in Australia when it comes to tarot and oracles. And I've also had a look at the best shops where you can buy brick and mortar shops, so actual shops where you can buy tarot, oracle decks and crystals. And that will be a permanent feature. So in each and every one of these videos, Tarot on Tour, from each city I will be filming it. There will be a section in which I will show you the best shops where you can buy the decks and crystals. And I also already had a couple of interviews, although I find that people prefer me to do the interview off camera, and so I will just quote what we've talked about. you know, with these lovely people that I met during my excursions. So, but let's have a look. I mean, Sydney is a beautiful city. It's not as many, and even myself before coming to Sydney, I actually thought that Sydney was the capital of Australia, but it's not. Canberra is the capital of Australia. Let's say that Canberra is a city that has the, let's say, the government. All the organs of the government are there. Australia is a federation, so of course we are divided in states. Sydney is in the New South Wales state, and Sydney indeed is the local, the state capital of New South Wales. The population of Sydney varies a lot. Of course, it depends on what year you benchmark it, but the population overall in New South Wales is about 7.5 million people, the majority of which, as you can imagine, lives in Sydney. Sydney offers pretty much a really good lifestyle. So Sydney is beautiful. Sydney is remarkable. It's got some stunning views. We have a festival every year. It's called Vivid Sydney. And it's a festival of light and light sculptures, and artists from all over the world come to Sydney to have their work exposed, and you can actually visit, and many sculptures are actually interactive, and there's a lot that you can do. And it goes on for about 3 weeks between May and June. Sometimes it's at the end of May, or perhaps the first couple of weeks of June. Some of these installations go on for until the end of June. One is actually still on until I think mid-July. It's actually fantastic because it has been growing so much, and I have been witnessing this because it was during the years in which I was working as a producer, a documentary producer, TV producer, and a photographer. And I was actually filming, and I was actually creating a feature video on these events that were absolutely unique in the world. And now, for example, this year we had a couple of very first events in the world. So we had the biggest drones light show in the southern hemisphere for Vivid Sydney. We also had the all of the tunnels that were under the Wynyard station that had been abandoned and closed off. They reopened them, they tightened them up, and they put some light installations there, and they created this kind of itinerary where you were interacting with the lights, and it was absolutely fantastic. And if you watch a couple of my videos, you will remember that I really enjoy neon lights, for example, because they do remind me of the 90s. Apologies for the noises in the background. It's we've got planes flying over, we got helicopters today flying over, and I'm filming this a couple of days before I'm leaving, and therefore I'm just, if you'd see my place today, it's just complete chaos, which is really hurting my OCD. It's really getting on my nerves, but it is what it is, and I'm actually happy that it is like that, because it means that we're leaving soon. Generally speaking, I'm very, I'm one of those people that actually have to have everything in the same spot, because otherwise it just throws me off, which is the opposite of my husband, because my husband is a hoarder. So he actually collects pretty much everything. But since I collect a lot of tarot and oracle decks, I can't say anything. So sorry for the tangent. I'm going back to Sydney. Divination in Sydney. What can I say about divination in Sydney? My understanding is that the Tarot Guild of Australia has a presence in Sydney, a very major presence in Sydney. Sydney has been hosting for many years now the festival Mind, Body, Spirit, which is literally centered around divination, not just about tarot. As you can imagine, there's a lot of tarot readers that come and do their work there, but also about astrology. And I don't know if you missed the video about my Mind, Body and Spirit festival haul. I talk about all the different kinds of divination. So there were actually even more this year. I think that it's a bit of a preview on what the interviews with the owners of the shops in Sydney have been, there is a certain sense in Sydney that people need to get back to knowing themselves after the pandemic. I feel like there's a lot of inner knowledge that has been lost together with the control over our own lives because of the pandemic. And after that, there's been this booming, and tarot and oracle and other forms of divination and introspection, not just divination, have become very, very popular. So when you look at Sydney, you will see a plethora of wellness coaches like myself, for example, but there's a lot of people that have started offering help. And that's exactly what I want to do, basically, because I'm actually studying to become a trauma counselor, a grief counselor, a holistic healer. And it's something that I feel like it's my vocation, it's my calling, because I have been studying human behavioral sciences for many years, and the biological components of the brains and the interactions with the body, in the body, for so many decades, that it's something that I feel like it's the natural evolution of that, given the my empathic tendency, the way in which I actually relate to others. So one common features to all of these videos, no matter what cities I will be filming them from, will be me trying to understand the place I'm in, and try also and assign a deck, or perhaps more than one deck, that reminds me of the spirit and the essence of that place, and also try and assign a tarot card that reminds me of the essence of that place. And starting from Sydney, Sydney has actually been going through a very strong evolution, and I would say that back 30-40 years ago, it used to be called Sin City. And so the first deck that I'm going to show you, that I feel reflected the way in which Sydney was seen and perceived 30-40 years ago, is the Lost Hollow. Not necessarily because the Lost Hollow to me represents sin. Let's clear this out. It's just that I really feel that and I wasn't here, so I rely on what my husband is telling me, on what his parents are telling me, on what others that were here 30-40 years ago are telling me. And I feel that the spirit of this deck really, really resonates with the way in which Sydney was seen. So it was because most of all, for what I can understand, Sydney used to have a lot of there was a lot of criminality, let's put it this way. There were a lot of organized crimes. As a matter of fact, there were a couple of TV shows that were called The Underbelly. And basically, I think they went on for 5 seasons. So each and every season presented a different family, or a different organized crime, or a different part of history of Sydney, where you were definitely seeing this kind of underbelly. So the criminality, the dark side. It kind of reminds me of a book that I read about Tokyo. I don't remember exactly the title, but it was about the ones that eat darkness. So it was exactly like that. And the fact that there was this tendency to only see the dark things that were happening, and everyone was talking about this area that was around King's Cross, because it was a place where you would 40 years ago they would have been called dive bars or joints like that. There was a lot of, unfortunately, there was a lot of drugs, there was a lot of illegal prostitution going on, and there was that kind of atmosphere. And again, I don't mean to say that this deck represents that. I feel like this deck can represent, because of the essence of this deck, can represent the part that was in the shadow of Sydney during that time. I personally am always fascinated by these kind of stories. Personally, I don't think that vice is actually a negative term. Of course, it can be negative in the sense that when vice produces criminality, when vice produces darkness, of course it is. However, it's interesting and fascinating to study the way in which vice is expressed in a city. Why? Because that way you will get to know what the problems are. So vice is a way for a person to just get out of that repression that they feel, that pressure they feel they're under. And that's one of the ways in which I personally read the devil card. And therefore, that's the reason why, and this is another feature that will be common to each and every videos of this series for every city, I will also assign a tarot card to the city I'm in. So Sydney, back when it was called Sin City, I feel that it was represented by the Lost Hollow Tarot, and I feel that it was also represented by the Devil card. And the Devil card for me is a very interesting card. It's a card that actually asks me to understand something. If it comes out in a personal reading, I want to understand why. Is there something that I'm not looking at? Is there something that I'm repressing? Is there something that I'm trying to push away, but it keeps on coming back to the surface? Is it something that represented temptations for me? And I need to understand why it has crossed the line. It went from a passion of mine to the negative side of passion, which is probably what we can see as vice. Why has it become an obsession? There are underlying motives to that. And the reason why I feel that when Sydney was called Sin City, it would have been represented by the devil is exactly that. The problems were not the dive joints. The problems were not, of course, the prostitution or the illegal the drugs were a problem, because they represented a side of criminality in the city. But why were they there? That's what I wanted to know. And I feel that Sydney has gone through a wonderful process of transformation, because honestly, I believe that now the way in which Sydney can be seen is a melting pot of cultures. And therefore, I feel like we need to move from the Lost Hollow to a different tarot that I feel now represents Sydney. Even though it's still, so it's the Next World Tarot. I love this tarot deck, okay? It's probably one of my favorite ones. It's by Christy Road. She's a fantastic singer as well as an artist. This deck is, to me, one of the most inclusive decks that I've got in my collection. It's got every single type of diversity. Every single type of diversity. If you don't know this deck, if you don't have this deck, I highly recommend it. It comes in 2 versions. This version has actually been trimmed by me because I can't handle really big decks. Just to give you an example, this is trimmed, but it's even trimmed is, you know, bigger than a standard tarot size. It's more like an oracle size now. So the reason why I recognize this tarot deck as the new kind of Sydney is exactly this. So Sydney has done a wonderful introspection work and a wonderful transformation in order to step away from the way in which it was seen as a sin city, as the city of vice. It has been accepting diversity, it has been accepting immigration, it has actually been thriving with immigration to the point that now, for example, when we present the figures for the GDP, we actually always rely on immigration because, you know, immigration brings wealth of knowledge, but wealth, actual wealth to a country. But I also feel like there's been a lot of acceptance in body shape diversity, for example, because one of our most famous designer, Carla Zampatti, who unfortunately passed away, I think it was a couple of years ago. I don't remember exactly when. But she also, so originally, of course, designer clothes were only fitting super skinny people. And, you know, obviously, I could never even afford a Carla Zampatti dress. But what I love is that they finally accepted to actually make clothes that look absolutely gorgeous on all body shapes and sizes. And I feel that that is a major step forward, because we didn't have that. So in other places it could be more common, fair enough, but we didn't have that. And also another thing that I love about this deck, and I absolutely love this card because it represents a person on a wheelchair. And let me tell you, when I got here in 2007, since my mom, before she died, she had been in a wheelchair for about 14 years or something like that. So I am very well aware of what is required by law to have on the street, to make them, to facilitate the possibility for a person on a wheelchair to actually have a normal life, or as normal as possible. Sydney did not have that. You could not, but even having a pram, if you had a kid and you had to go around with a pram, good luck. Nowadays is a little bit better. We are not exactly there. So that's what I mean. And Sydney Gay Pride is one of the most beautiful gay pride I've ever seen. It is colorful, it is magnificent, it is loud, it's so incredibly beautiful. There's food from every corners of the world that you can enjoy. There's music, there's happiness there. It's actually quite famous. I think that there's a lot of people from the rest of Australia that come to Sydney for the Gay Pride because it is that beautiful. And so that's why I think this deck really represents Sydney right now, because we've done so much, we've done a lot of work, we're going down the right direction. There is a lot of, all of this sense of freedom that you get also from these cards, and, and progression. But we're not there yet, and I think that it's fair in the sense that sometimes you just have to admit that you're not there yet, because it's the same feeling you get when you get the world card in a reading. I don't know if it's just me. I'm actually super happy when I see the star or the sun, cards like that. I'm really happy about. But when I see the world, I'm like, oh, okay. And it's because yes, it's the culmination, it's the top, it's the max, but it's also the ending. So Sydney, it's not, no, we haven't reached the world card yet. And so, we're still working. We're working really hard. We're doing everything we can. We've done a lot. We've gone a long way, absolutely. But we still have a lot to learn. And so that's why I have chosen this beautiful tarot deck to express, in relation to what Sydney used to be, and the dark side of Sydney, into the boisterous and multicolorful side of Sydney right now. But let's talk about the best shops where you can buy tarot and oracle decks and also crystals in Sydney. There are so many. I have been a faithful client. I literally spent entire salaries in the shops, but I'm really happy because it feels like you're investing in yourself, if you know what I mean. Whenever you buy crystals, whenever you buy tarot and oracle deck, at least to me, it's something that it makes me feel, my wallet might be crying, but I'm actually happy inside. Let's put it this way. And to be honest with you, I'm actually happy because I've heard from friends all over Australia saying that metaphysical stores in different cities are actually really marking up the prices of a deck. But in the case of Sydney, it's actually, I have to say, the prices are very honest, very honest. So let's have a look. These are the top 5 shops where you can buy tarot and oracle decks and crystals in Sydney, and I'm presenting them to you in no particular order whatsoever, because I don't want to do a hierarchy. It's just these are the 5 best, and I will just make sure to put the addresses. So if you're in Sydney or if you come to Sydney, you will definitely be able to visit them. So let's talk about 2, let's say, chain bookstores. The first one is probably one of the most famous ones and is Kinokuniya in the Galleries Victoria in the center, in the CBD in Sydney. This bookstore saved my life. It saved my life because when I arrived in Sydney, I did not know where to go. I didn't know. Sydney is big, guys. It's a very big city. Okay, we have 4.5 million people. It is very big. From let's say the eastern suburbs, so from the CBD or from the coastline up to the Blue Mountains, I would say it's about 63 kilometers, if not more. Sorry, people will go, no, it's not. Sorry, I actually never did that. I did go to the Blue Mountains for excursions, but I never really calculated how many kilometers is that. But it's a long way. So as you can imagine, it's a big place. And when I got here, first I didn't know where to go. And I remember there was this, I was sharing in a house with another 5 guys. And one of them was working in the CBD, and he went, have you ever heard of Kinokuniya? I'm like, sounds Japanese to me, so please tell me. And he said, no, it's a bookstore in the CBD, and he gave me the instruction on how to get there. It was literally the second week I was in Sydney. And when I went there, I felt like crying. It's a massive bookstore. Bookstore. It's got a section only for Japanese and Chinese and another, I think, Korean probably language, and a much bigger side of for books in English. But what they always had was a special, let's say, shelf dedicated to tarot and oracle decks. And it was amazing because ever since then, it was since 2007, I've been going there practically every month. They've increased their collection to the point of having to expand more and more and more. And as you can see, it's just, I don't know, they have like 5-6 shelves now. And as you can imagine, there's hundreds of decks because obviously you can stack them, you know, one next to the other. It's not like, I mean, practically also like books. And so there's so many, and they have a wonderful section on books dedicated to, you know, the occult, metaphysical disciplines and tarot, but also crystal, for example. It's just a joy to go there. If you're in Sydney, if you live in Sydney, if you come to Sydney, absolutely go to Kinokuniya. Your mouth will drool. I can guarantee that. Now the second spot, one of the best spots to buy tarot and oracle decks in Sydney, is also another bookstore, and it's a chain. It's called Dmox, and the one that I'm showing you is also in the CBD. I'll put the address. And as you can see, they also have a really nice collection of tarot and oracle decks. And it's something that it's always a pleasure to go there as well, because I have to say they are very close to Kinokuniya. So what happens is that obviously people would just go to those two places comparing prices. What I can tell you is that Kinokuniya has a membership card that offers you 10% on everything you buy. And Dmox has a loyalty card that gives you points whenever you buy something. And then when you accumulate, for example, $100 worth of purchases, they give you a $10 voucher. So it's kind of the same. It's still 10%. But Kinokuniya applies the discount when you buy it for each and every purchase, whereas Dmox, you know, you have to accrue that, and then they will give you the voucher. Sometimes they have different decks, and so I do recommend, if you're in Sydney, if you come to Sydney, check them out both. But let's talk about the 3 shops that are actually my favorites because they are not chains. And let me tell you, I did try to get someone interviewed at Kinokuniya. Let's say they didn't have time. I'm just gonna keep it at that. Let's say they didn't have time. They were very busy. Whereas, you know, small businesses, they love to have a chat with you. Obviously, they were absolutely stoked when I told them that I was doing this feature. They were really, really happy. They did everything they could to accommodate me, and they explained to me the story of the shops and everything. So let's have a look. We've got Crystal Arcanas, which is in Newtown. And now Newtown is a suburb in Sydney. It's called the Inner West in the sense that it's not, you know, it's not far from the CBD, but it's still not in the CBD. Of course, I'll always mark down the address if you want to visit this store. It is, as you can see, a beautiful place, such a beautiful place, beautiful decor. What I absolutely love about this shop is that they can actually, every single one of the decks that they sell, and by the way, they sell also a couple of indie decks, not just mass market decks. So you can find Zig's Arcanas there, and the Mystic Moon's Tarot. So every single one of the decks that they're selling, they're open. They have a copy which is literally open, and you can have a look at the cards and decide whether you want to buy it or not. And that is wonderful, because I was talking to a member of the staff, and I was saying I love it because it reminds me of the 90s, where bookstores and places selling tarot and oracle decks actually did that. At least in Italy, I was able to view everything that I wanted, you know, in Italy, and then they had to stop. And then, you know, obviously during the pandemic, it was even worse because of hygiene purposes, obviously. Now it's coming back, I believe, because it's not the only shop that does that. It is the first one that I remember doing that. I have been a long time customers of them. I've always been extremely happy because the staff are lovely. You can go there with a very vague question and their knowledge will just amaze you, because they will always have something to talk about, to explain to you, to recommend. So I highly recommend, but obviously I put it in the top 5. So obviously I love this shop so much. Then the second shop I wanted to talk about is also in Newtown, and it's in the same street, so in King Street. So, but as I said, I'll put the address in the description box below. And this shop is called Mineralism. So Mineralism has got 2 branches, one in Glebe, that is also in the inner west, and one in Newtown. The one I visit, let's say, more often is the one in Newtown. Also lovely, absolutely lovely stuff. I had a chat with the lovely Monica over there, and she explained to me that that shop has been founded by Jessica Lahoud. So Jessica comes from a 3rd generation miners family, and she is the author. You probably know her because she's the author of the Crystal flashcards deck published by Rockpool, and also the Crystal Companion book. And obviously their passion, because the family obviously is heavily invested in crystal, their passion is about, you know, the interaction and the properties of crystals. It's just the Mineralism shop in Newtown is absolutely gorgeous as well. I love the aesthetics. It's, as I said before, I was talking with Monica. We had a lovely chat, and she was explaining to me the way in which the shop came about. It's about the passion that the family has with the healing properties of crystals. And as you can see, it's a lovely shop. They have tarot and oracle decks, and that's another shop that actually gives you the possibility to look at the cards before you purchase them, which is very, very, I really insist on saying that it's actually very important, because you can actually look at the online shop, and there's a few in Sydney, based in Sydney, and perhaps they show you a couple of cards, but it's not the same thing. To me, the experience of a deck is not just visual, it's also tactile, if you know what I mean. So if I have a deck in my hands, I actually need to feel my reaction to it. Am I going to bond with this deck or not? Also in the way in which I hold it, the way in which the cardstock feels in my hands. And so this is an incredibly beautiful way, you know, to just let you have this experience that will give you a suggestion on what to do. Do you want to buy this deck or not? How does it feel to you? So it's a really appreciated gesture that we really love, because it's something that gives us that bit more, you know, it's a bit of an edge compared to other shops that they give you in these two shops in Newtown. And last but not least, I'm talking about a shop which is located in Westfield in Chatswood. Again, I will put the address in the description box below. And this shop is called Divine Treasure Crystals. And I had a lovely chat with the owner, Kanaka, and we talked about, you know, the fact that after the pandemic, people really needed to get back that kind of control back into their own lives, and just try and make sense of everything that was going on. And it's not just about divination. What I really love about this booming of tarot and oracle, and also every kind of ways in which you can actually get in touch, you know, tap into your own intuition and get in touch with your inner self, and actually have that kind of transformation that we're all supposed to go through in life, achieve the kind of enlightenment that we all want to achieve. So even crystals, for example, there is something that is very important in this booming, let's call it booming, because it's becoming more and more popular every day, and we see decks being produced everywhere by artists. I think that it's the way in which people are going back to a sense of spirituality, which is different from a sense of religion. I believe that spirituality is taking a step back from institutionalized religion. It can still go hand in hand with that, absolutely, if that's your thing. In my case, I really appreciate the honor that is given to spirituality in the last couple of years. It has been recognized as something that is actually essential to human beings, and I really believe in that. So those were the 5 best shops in which you can buy tarot, oracle and crystals in Sydney. And now I'm going to show you, and this is also going to be a permanent feature common to all of the videos from this new series, Tarot on Tour. I'm going to show you a spread in which we're actually going to interview the city. So I'm going to interview Sydney. Let's have a look at what she's going to tell me. I think Sydney is a she. She's a she for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Healing Waves Tarot, because this is the way Sydney has become for me. So I live by the ocean, and that has been incredibly cathartic and healing for me. And I believe that the Healing Waves Tarot represents that for me. So that's why I'm using this tarot deck. But obviously I will not, today I'm still at home and I'm filming this from home, so I have access to all of my tarot decks, which will not be the case obviously when I'll be on tour. So we'll see what I'll do, but I'll sort it out. So let's have a look. I created this deck, which is very similar to an interview you do with a first time deck, let's say a new deck. But let me just shuffle a bit. Okay, this is not a very easy mat, and it's not a very easy deck to find out, but I'll try and do my best. Okay. So in this spread, we've got 5 cards. Okay, so let's have a look. So we got 5 cards. Normally I don't lay them down. I just lay them down and turn them face up. But because I want to explain what the positions are, I'm gonna do it this way. And hopefully everything will fit in the frame. And of course it doesn't. I wish I had a different lens. Okay. Let's do it this way. Let's see that's fine. Well, anyway, sort of. Okay, now let's have a look. In the first position we've got, please introduce yourself. So you're directly addressing the city. Right now, I'm actually having this conversation, this interview with Sydney. Sydney, are you there? Please introduce yourself. And we got the Page of Water. Wow, that's amazing. So the Healing Waves Tarot has elements for the minor suits. So obviously the Page of Water is what you would normally call the Page of Cups, but referring back to the element of water, which is definitely referring to the feelings and the emotions. And in particular, the page in this case represents the empath as an archetype. It's the person who's always feeling. So in the evolution of the court cards, we know that there's kind of a transformation. It's the same kind of hero's journey that you see in the major arcana, so the fool's journey, but it's actually, let's say, almost condensate. It's just a short kind of a journey, let's say, in 4 stages that goes from the page to the knight to the queen and to the king. And when it comes to, when you put all of these elements together also with numerology, you will see that the page is the person that is actually just starting on their journey. And in the journey of the feelings is the person that feels everything, is the empath, because they feel all the feels. And I don't know, for Sydney to decide to present herself as the Page of Water, as the Page of Cup, as the empath, is it directly at me in the sense that I think that she's telling me this is the way I see her, and that is 1000% right. That's the way I see Sydney right now. Sydney is literally going through this process in which everything is heard, but also everything hurts, because there is feelings everywhere. Everything that happens has a lot of weight on the city itself, but it's the start of the journey. So hang in there, Sydney, because you will progress, you will mature, you will eventually go through all of the phases of the knight, and then arrive to be the queen, and then ultimately give back to the community when you mature into the king. But let's see what the other positions are. So these are your strengths, Sydney. So what are your strengths? Oh, okay, the world. That is amazing to me, because I do see that as a strength for Sydney. Sydney is a multicultural city. Sydney has the whole world in it. I kid you not. So Mark Wins, if you don't follow him, he's got a wonderful channel called literally Mark Wins. And he's in Sydney right now, and he's been going to all of the best places where to eat a particular kind of food. So food is his thing, and I love his channel because I love food. I watch all of his videos, and he's in Sydney right now, and he's posting videos, and he's going to all the right places. So he's got some really good informants that told him where to go. And it's true, Sydney has got the whole world. It's you can literally find any, and I kid you not, you can literally find a restaurant for almost all of the countries in the world. It is represented in Sydney, but it's not just that, it's the cultural side of it. Definitely a strength. So Sydney, tell me, what are your weaknesses instead? Okay, the Knight of Fire. Well, the Knight of Fire in this case is the archetype of it's a bit of a soldier kind of, there is this movement, there is this kind of restlessness that is always associated with all of the knights, but in particular when you have fire with fire. So knights for me already contain in themselves the element of fire, and when you put fire with fire, you need to be careful not to have not to burn everything out. So the fact that you, Sydney, recognize that your weaknesses are related to the fact that there might be a little bit too much of everything, too much of movement, too much of something that could eventually become explosive. I think that it's a very good introspection that you've done into your own strengths and weaknesses there, so well done. Now, Sydney, I'm going to ask you, what is your relationship with me, which is in this card? The Five of Fire. Yes, we do fight a lot, don't we, Sydney? Okay, so I've probably never said anything until now in this channel, but Sydney and I don't know, man, sometimes this city, it's just spitting me out. I feel like I've been rejected more than I've been accepted. Uh, I don't know, I get it. So, yeah, I get it, 100%. This is turning to be very, very personal. But yes, we are definitely in a bit of a conflict, are we? And yet, it's the Five of Fires, the Five of Wands. It's the kind of conflict that, have you ever seen a couple of cats fighting? If it's a bad fight, I'm not talking about the actual serious fight. I'm talking about the lots of hissing and growling and with the paw, and they go like this, and then the other one will respond the same way. That's me and Sydney. It's a bit of a cat fight, isn't it, Sydney? Okay, well, okay, I'll take stock of that. And then the last position is, how can I best enjoy what you have to offer right now? So I'm just going to pull this up, sorry, because otherwise we won't be able to see that. Ace of Fire, let's start everything again, don't we? We definitely need to start with an ace. The ace is the new beginnings. We probably started on the wrong foot, Sydney. There's a lot of fire in this spread, and I really do believe that there's a lot that we can actually achieve together. So I humbly accept your message, and I recognize that, you know, it's not you, it's me. It's probably both of us, but we started on the wrong foot, and now we have to start again, and that's the best way to do that. So this was it. As I said, these will be features that will be common to each and every videos that will be posted on my channel, and it will be under the new title of the series, Tarot on Tour. So we're starting today with the first episode, and I've been showing and talking about Sydney in Australia, which is where I live. So stay tuned, because we'll be seeing other cities, and I hope that you'll have as much fun watching these videos as I'm having whilst I'm filming them. So please, if you do like them, don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. It really means the world to me. So this is it for today. Have a great day.